Released in 1982, John Carpenter's The Thing remains one of the best sci-fi horror movies of all time, and it's famously known for its ambiguous ending. Carpenter had to fight to ensure the film's final cut featured an ambiguous ending instead of the many alternate versions suggested by crew members, a decision fans now appreciate. However, many fans are unaware of the alternate endings considered for this cult classic, so today we're going to be exploring the versions that almost ruined The Thing. Before we explore this ending, let us quickly recap the film's plot, which follows a crew of 12 American scientists as they survive a shape-shifting alien attack at a research base in Antarctica. Also known as The Thing, this entity was capable of mimicking any life form that it encountered, leading the crew to develop suspicions regarding each other's identities. Soon enough, the story takes a paranoid turn as MacReady and Childs end up as the two survivors who share an uneasy moment by the fire. While their research station was burning to the ground in the background, they realized that they would also end up freezing to death once the fire died down. In this situation, they had no hope for survival and had a hard time trusting each other, as there was a high chance that either one could be a shape-shifting monster. As a classic body horror film, The Thing features a creature that appears as a writhing mass capable of mimicking humans, animals, or even forming bizarre new shapes like a human head with spider legs. As the movie comes to an end with MacReady and Childs sitting by the fire, fans are left biting their nails as they try to derive their own conclusions regarding their survival. However, some alternate endings provided clear answers and focused on the survival of one particular character. Alternate endings. Number 1. MacReady is rescued. In one scenario, MacReady is the only one to be rescued, and this was one of the endings that was actually filmed. Here, MacReady escapes on a helicopter and even takes a blood test that proves he was uninfected. Relieved to know that he wasn't a thing and fit to re-enter society, the film ended on a great note for MacReady, but the scenario was far too cheesy and hopeful. It didn't match the dark and unsettling atmosphere set throughout the film, and was only filmed because one of the film's editors, Todd Ramsey, suggested that a bleak ending would not bode well for fans. Carpenter was quite hesitant about this, but he agreed to go ahead and film it regardless, just in case they decided that this was the best outcome. There's no doubt that this ending would have been definitive, but Carpenter wasn't a fan, and his instincts were correct, as it didn't test well with audiences. In an interview, he talked about how it would be stylistically cheesy, and his experience with horror guided him against this ending in the end. Number 2. MacReady alone to die. In this second scenario, similar to the original ending, the editors decided that having MacReady survive didn't work, so they filmed a version where he's left alone to die. They decided to film an alternate take where MacReady sits down in the snow while Childs never returns to the site. There's no final ambiguous conversation that takes place between the two characters, leaving no room for any confusion or tension in the air. Of course, this ending made the film far less tense, and the crew was quite lost when it hardly tested any better than the first one. However, Carpenter believed that this ending didn't work since The Thing wasn't a heroic film, and fans didn't want to see someone dying alone at the end of things. Even though this ending was discarded, the film had already bled through the budget, and the studio decided to send it ahead for printing. At the last minute, Carpenter convinced an executive producer to go ahead with the ambiguous ending, and scenario 2 was fully discarded. 3. Both MacReady and Childs are the Thing. In the original script, both MacReady and Childs were infected by the Thing before they were rescued by a helicopter. In this ending, they both turn into the Thing and wait until the spring to be rescued, only to terrorize the pilots by asking them where they could get a hot meal. The film was supposed to end right after they delivered this sinister line, but it was rejected for being a little too straightforward. In fact, this ending was never even filmed after Bill Lancaster had first written it, and he had some creative differences with Carpenter when it came to such decisions. Carpenter firmly believed that such an ending would ruin the paranoia and tense atmosphere that they had maintained throughout the film, and he also wanted to keep the Thing concealed towards the end. While Lancaster drew inspiration from the original novella, wherein the main characters are victorious, Carpenter thought that this ending was a bit shallow and explored other alternatives. Why were all these endings rejected? Why does the original ending work best? At the end of the day, all these definitive endings significantly reduced ambiguity and tension. The final ending worked because it was consistent with the film's tones of paranoia and uncertainty, and an open-ended conclusion where both MacReady and Childs embraced their fate, which works best out of all these other endings. The fact that they both have a hard time trusting each other also adds to the tension, and this ending is regarded as the film's biggest highlight. To this day, viewers debate over which crew members became things at which points in the film, and the ending made it impossible to know if the Thing was dead or merely disguised as MacReady or Childs. We also never find out if these main characters managed to escape Antarctica, and keeping the audience guessing until the last minute was a bold but excellent move that worked out in the film's favor. Moreover, fans did come up with some assumptions that only added to the film's charm, and one common theory was that both these characters chose to freeze to death to ensure that the Thing didn't escape. This only adds to their heroism, and in case only one of them was the Thing, it provokes questions regarding the exact moment that they were turned or how they might target the other after the final shot. These theories further cemented the film as a horror classic, and interestingly, there was another bonus ending that was even included in the television release. In this ending, the scene jumps to the next day where a helicopter's crew spots the burning research station while a voiceover talks about the nature of alien things. This voiceover raises questions such as who knows what evil lurks in the skies, and warns the viewers to be on guard for what might happen around them. As the voice fades, we see a single husky running away from the research station, implying that the Thing was a dog all along. John Carpenter absolutely hated this ending and even stated that Universal Pictures head, Sid Sheinberg, had made this television version after the film didn't perform that well at the box office. He was quite upset over this ending and even questioned how they could do such a thing. Fortunately, the movie wasn't a flop in any way, and it soon went on to attain cult classic status due to its original, ambiguous ending. Had it been changed to any of these alternate versions, the audience would have perceived it as a typical monster movie where the good guy triumphs over the bad, which kinda goes against the Thing's whole thing, wherein the crew members have a hard time trusting one another. To throw this all out at the end would have been a disheartening move, and we couldn't be more glad for the ending that John Carpenter fought for. Marvelous verdict! And with that, we've explored the 3 alternate endings that almost made it to the final cut of The Thing. While the final ending made the most sense and even contributed greatly to the film's success, we can't even imagine how things would have played out if the crew had greenlit one of these alternate endings instead. Thankfully, Carpenter is a master when it comes to understanding his horror fan base, and we can always trust him to deliver a solid and robust plotline that sends chills down the audience's spines. The Thing's ambiguous ending remains a topic of discussion even today, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments section down below.